Rabbi Richard Address is founder and director of Jewish Sacred Aging and host of the weekly Seekers of Meaning podcast. Both projects are focused on the implications of the longevity revolution, the aging of the baby boom generation, and its impact on Jewish communal life. He's the author of Seekers of Meaning, Baby Boomers, Judaism, and the Pursuit of Healthy Aging. Ordained by HUC-JIR in 1972, Rabbi Address began his rabbinic career at Los Angeles congregations. He served for over 3 decades with the Union for Reform Judaism as regional director and then as founding director of the Department of Jewish Family Concerns. He also served as a part-time rabbi for Beth Hillel in Carmel, New Jersey, and after his URJ tenure, he served as senior rabbi of Congregation Makor Shalom in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Rabbi Address teaches at HUC-JIR in New York, as well as in the certification program on gerontology and palliative care at Yeshiva University. He was recently named Dean of the Gamliel Institute for Kavod V'Nichum, the organization that trains and educates members of Chevra Kadisha societies, Jewish burial societies around the country. He has written and edited numerous books and articles and consults with congregations all over North America on issues of healthy aging and spirituality. Rabbi Address was my colleague during the 11 years that I worked for the URJ. He is a dear friend of several Beth Am members who are here tonight and who have come to know him well. All of us cherish him for his pioneering work in the field of sacred aging, as well as for his wisdom, wit, and menschlichkeit. It is such a pleasure to welcome Richie and his wife Jane here tonight to Beth Am. Please welcome Rabbi Richard Address. His topic tonight honoring life as we honor the dead.
Thank you, Rabbi. So many. Hello. Nice to see you, too. Rabbi Prosman, okay, look at this. So many microphones. I feel like I should be giving a press conference. Shabbat Shalom. Rabbi. Where's he? Rabbi Martyr, that one? Cantor? My God. Marlene, Charlie, Alan, it's like old homie. It's nice to come back to Beth Am. This is about the, third or fourth time I've been here in a variety of capacities. Usually when I was working for the URJ as regional director and then department head. So it's always nice to come back here. And you are blessed with tremendous leadership, both lay and professional, and Rabbi Martyr's Club. We served on the staff and as regional director for a few years, and you are blessed to have her. So, and it's good to see you, and good luck in the future. Thank you. I'll give it up for Rabbi Martyr. Come on. This is not a new Jewish ritual, by the way. But there's something flying around here. Obviously a very Jewish bug, and who knows? So we have lots of work to do in the next 10 minutes, and then we'll continue some. Go away, please. Must be a Yankee fan. That's the only baseball I'll do all night, because I'm in a foreign territory, all the way over here. Anybody from Philly, by the way? Okay, I knew it. What high school? Okay, Central. What's your name? Arthur, be careful, Arthur. So again, thank you for this invitation. We're going to talk a little bit about some things that are happening, and I congratulate you and this congregation in moving forward with plans to really develop a Chevra Kadisha. Debbie and your cantor hopefully will carry out some of these ideas. My work with Jewish sacred aging, which is really my passion, and as Rabbi Martyr said, has occupied the bulk of my rabbinate in these last several years, has reflected a significant rise in interest in reimagining rituals, and not surprisingly, one of those has to do with the mitzvah, those rituals surrounding the mitzvah of kavod hamet, the honoring or the respecting of the dead. Because this has emerged as one of the real primary interests in the progressive Jewish community in these last couple of years. And the reason for that, I believe, is a direct result of our generation, the aging of the baby boom generation. Because throughout our life's journey, as many of you know, we've tried to seize as much control over life as possible. And it is not surprising, therefore, that as we turn third and head to home, second image, that we're trying to also seize control and exercise control over our own death. And so it is also then not surprising that we've begun to reimagine some of the rituals that surround this event. One of the workshops that we do a lot around North America is a whole workshop dealing with new rituals for new life stages that did not exist in many ways before. And they all, in many of them, revolve around some attempts to deal with those last years of life. So we don't have time to do all of them, believe me, and some of them are really kind of cool. And speaking of which, where's the cantor and the group? Oh, thank you for the Hashkivenu. It's my favorite Friday night prayer, but, and Rabbi, thank you. You guys, it was really very, very pretty. Here's something that I urge you as you develop your program to think about. Think about creating a 3x5 card with your logo on it and handing it out and making it available to every member of the congregation through your Chevra Kadisha or your Care and Community program is when you sign an advance directive. And a prayer goes like this, was written by one of our students at HUC. Blessed is the Eternal who has granted us life, sustained us, and enabled us to reach this season. God who has given me the power of choice and who has brought me the strength to make these decisions. Thank you for granting me the wisdom to think ahead and to understand that great range of possibilities that could come in the future. When the time comes that I am no longer able to make decisions on my own behalf, may my wishes be carried out by those who are close to me. I have been blessed with so much, and may my family be at peace with my decisions. May we love one another and cherish our time together. Think about what you could do as part of a whole total program by just making this available, and when somebody sits in their lawyer's office and signs their advance directive, they take this out because it is a sacred, powerful spiritual moment, an acknowledgement in true form of our own mortality. There's a whole bunch of other rituals, really, that have been compiled and are being written as we speak. Rituals for the acceptance of the diagnosis of dementia, rituals for removing a life support system. And Rabbi Martyr has contributed to this workshop as well with personal prayers as one approaches death. And we've even discussed another somewhat radical ritual, and that is the redefinition of adultery in light of Alzheimer's and dementia. Something that is happening in this congregation as we speak. So I urge you to think about this, and we're going to end with some practical solutions. How many of you have seen recently the HBO show called Alternative Endings? Anybody see it? One? Okay, for those of you who have streaming services, whatever, you all know what it is, and if you don't, ask somebody under the age of 10. Alternative Endings is an HBO show aired about a month ago. It was a program that explored and examined several alternative ways of death and the disposal of remains. This is something that is restructuring the entire funeral industry. I just had a conversation with the funeral director that I deal with a lot at home back in Cherry Hill, the Platts, and we were talking about this at a meeting on Tuesday night, and he said, yes, we're involved in a lot of this as well. Many of these rituals move away from traditional funeral home practices, such things as green burials, or if you read this article in the September 2nd New Yorker, an article about the legalization of human composting. a law that was just passed in the state of Washington, which is up the street, I think. Also, so-called green burials, which are becoming more and more popular around the country. And even part of this show talked about people who have contracted with private companies to take the remains, cremains, and shoot them into space, as well as an analysis at the end of someone who is choosing the medical aid in dying, which is now legal, as you know, in the state of California and my own state of New Jersey. All of this is happening now. This is not fiction, this is now. So we don't have a time to do a deep dive into the psycho-spiritual issues of these, but I urge you to do it. I believe that much of this has to do with our desire to see some meaning, even in our own death, to continue the social wave of what is called this age of entitlement. In other words, it's about me and what I want. And most of all, still prevalent, the continuing and ongoing conversation of our fear of our own death and the realization of our own mortality. Into this milieu, into this environment within our community, there's a renewed interest thus in this Chevra Kadisha movement. An organization with whom I work, Kavod V'Rechum, exists to train and educate leaders in the development of progressive Chevra Kadisha. One of these trainings has just been completed down the street in Redwood City. The need for progressive groups is a reflection of the changing demographic of the American Jewish community and as well of the American Jewish family. The Chevra takes care of the body after death. It washes the body, something called tahara, and in a traditional way wraps the body in a shroud, tachritim, and the body is not to be left alone. So between the end of this ritual and the interment, there is a watcher, a shomer, who watches the body until burial. There's great symbolism in here. There are studies and studies and studies. The Cigna group just did a whole major study on this epidemic of isolation. And I would suggest to you that this concept of a shomer speaks directly to the fact that in our tradition, no one should allow to be alone in life or in death. This is part of Kavod Hamet. So this idea of this tripart approach in the Chevra Kadisha, this idea of the shomer is excruciatingly important. Because if you talk to people who are dealing with the older adult community, especially as all of us get older, the statistics are overwhelming in the amount of people who are isolated and alone. And there are people in nursing homes and assisted living facilities right here who never have anyone visit. How much the more so when the journey of life ends, that they should not be alone. This is part of the job and part of the role of the Chevra Kadisha. There's some great symbolism here. The shomer, again, keeps the body company. And again, is a reaction to this isolation. Likewise, the tahara, the concept of cleaning, of cleansing. Now, all of you know that water is a very powerful religious symbol. In our tradition, okay, this is obscure, or not so obscure Jewish facts for 200. What's the major water ritual that we have? Mikveh, right. And I'm sure you've discussed this whole explosion of the use of mikveh for a whole variety of different things right now in the United States, across the worldwide Jewish community. People recovering from cancers, moving out of relationships, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, brides, grooms, et cetera. Using the mikveh, the water is cleansing. Well, the tahara, the cleansing aspect of the body, has great symbolism as well. Think about, if I may suggest, rumor has it that Yom Kippur is coming. I heard that on the flight out. But really, this idea of cleansing the body, think about really what Yom Kippur and the high holidays are. it is also a spiritual tahara. It is a spiritual cleansing. So it's interesting, again, that Judaism, you can play with these symbols and acts and religious acts and mitzvot within Judaism. They have a very, very, very powerful relationship to stuff that we do all the time. And again, even at Rosh Hashanah, with water, what will we do after the morning service? Tashlich, we will go to a body of water to cast our sins. So this idea of cleansing, of purification, is something that carries with us throughout our tradition. Tradition believes that the Chevra Kadisha began with Rabbi Low in Prague, dating from somewhere in the 16th century. It's rooted, as I said, in the mitzvah of Kavod Hamet. And we can fast forward to a responsa from our own reform movement, which states that, quote, the functions of the Chevra Kadisha accord with the principles of Reform Judaism, unquote. The responsa goes on to say, and this is important, quote, a Reform Chevra Kadisha can be an important and sometimes necessary addition to the Jewish community. It is desirable, especially when it adds to the traditional functions and a concern for the comforting of the mourners. For instance, it could establish itself as a congregational branch that is responsible for helping the family make the arrangements before and after the burial. After the funeral, the Chevra Kadisha is one of its auxiliaries could see to it that mourners will come to a meal of consolation, that they help assemble a minyan for services during the Shiva. They could explain and make available to all Jews the traditional rules and customs in caring for the dead, unquote. That's a reform responsa. Now, curiously enough, and some of you know this because I was here, and many of you, and people from the department know this, one of the major functions of the Department of Jewish Family Concerns was the establishment of caring communities within congregations, and there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them now in existence as a result of some of this work. And it is part of many of these caring communities, who go by a variety of different names, that they do exactly what the Reform Responsa is talking about vis-a-vis the Chevra Kadisha. But there's an amazing amount of possibilities for educational opportunities. People do not know now the ins and outs, the whys and how comes of the bulk of Jewish death and mourning practices. There's been a retreat across the American Jewish community from 7 days of Shiva. A congregational-based Chevra Kadisha can and should be the home of ongoing education on Jewish approaches to medical technology, choices that impact the end-of-life care, palliative care, and the spiritual approaches to what it means to navigate our medical system, especially as it impacts the last several years of life. The ethics of choice, personal autonomy, and spirituality are rarely discussed, especially within congregational life, and yet so many families right here have, or will be navigating this journey and need, and in fact are entitled to know what their Judaism says about this path and this part of life's journey. Additionally, there's need to educate people on a regular basis on the legal and financial aspects of end of life that may lead to annual educational forums on filling out advance directives, healthcare proxies, powers of attorney, and the filling out and the legalization of post forms, physician's order for life-sustaining treatment, as well as orienting members of our congregations to the Jewish approaches, to the laws, especially, as I said, here in California, in my home in New Jersey, on the legalization of medical aid in dying. This is a fact within our community as it transitions, and we are in the midst, as we'll talk about later, of transition of a very, very brand new American Jewish community. There's a need to discuss how burial societies will handle issues of Jews by choice, and this is why progressive chevras are springing up, as opposed to Orthodox-based Chevra Kadisha. How they will handle issues of Jews by choice, interfaith couples, GLBTQ members, and who may not fall into the parameters of the traditional Chevra. All of this is happening now, and these are some of the parameters of progressive Chevras. Let me suggest then, in closing, the challenge to this congregation, which I know you're about to take up. the creation of a congregational-based Chevra Kadisha. As you, I hope, can see, it is another step in engaging and empowering the membership of a congregation to see how, in a very real and practical sense, Jewish texts and Jewish traditions can relate to a segment of life that each of us will meet. To create an environment of empathy, of compassion, and caring, from education to direct service. This raises the spiritual quotient of our communities, gives voice and meaning to the mitzvah of Kavod Hamet, and in the end, celebrates the blessing of life. We read tomorrow morning a Torah portion, Ki Tavo, that talks about blessings and curses. But the text that I wrote about at our weekly Torah portion commentary on the website on JewishSacredAging.com really talks about a very interesting text at the very, very beginning of the portion. On 27:8, Deuteronomy 27, verse 8, it says, "You shall inscribe upon these stones all the words of this teaching." It has to do when the children of Israel crossed into the promised land, and the first thing they were commanded to do was take a stone, build an altar, and write on that stone all those laws. What does it mean to us? It means that the creation of this Chevra Kadisha for Beth Am not only serves this congregation, but is a role model for the next generation. It will allow our children, our grandchildren, those kids who were just here for Kiddush, that young lady who led us in the Vel Havta, it will allow them to grow up in a community where they understand, they've learned, they understand that you, the generation that will give them this teaching, show them the way, whether the dugma, the example, to celebrate and honor the passion, the power, and the presence of the sacred in life, even as life ends. Shabbat Shalom.